Just to start off, why would we worry about doing a sustainable event? I know you're all here because you have interest in it, but sometimes there's a bit of selling the idea to the group that you're presenting to, that you're doing the function for, and that can be efficient or good to have some tools to say why it's important to them, because they might not necessarily feel it's a high priority. So welcome, hello.
Hello.
So, and those reasons would be to educate. It's an opportunity to educate people about sustainability and a chance to educate people. The obvious chance to reduce our carbon footprint. Some of the changes in making your event more sustainable will actually save you money in the long run. And then OSU is very much set up to help you accomplish the goal of making your event more sustainable. So most of the work is already done. During this talk today, it'll be more about here are your resources, here's how to do it. It's more just having the idea and actually taking that step of actually making it happen. And then the biggest reason is because that's part of who we are as Beavers. Quoting from, true to our Oregon heritage, we are dedicated to preserving the healthy balance between human communities and the earth we depend on. Okay, so areas of an event where you can make sustainable choices, and these are the three primary areas that I'll be talking about today. Okay, so starting with site selection. Sustainable events at OSU. Earth Week has a history of doing sustainable events here on campus. But prior to 2008 University Day, at least in talking with the Sustainability Office in OSU Catering, there hadn't been that much of a focus on people requesting to do sustainable events on campus. So we're really kind of on a start of people being really interested in it. Some other examples of sustainable events, though, that have taken place. The 2013 picnic, which was the welcome for all new students this year, was done as a completely zero waste event and was very successful. The Sustain-A-Ball that was held last year, the Beaver Community Fair, and Peace Jam. How Peace Jam had been worked to be more sustainable. They encouraged people to bring reusable water bottles and coffee mugs to their events. A bit about the history of composting here in the Corvallis area and what has really allowed us to make big strides recently. As you're probably familiar, Allied Waste is the facility for processing our trash and compostables and recyclables here in this area. And they have made some really big advances just in the past year, even narrow it down to the past 6 months. Predominantly, that has been the ability to compost post-consumer waste. The rules in the recycling world were that once food waste had come in contact with a person, that's when it becomes post-consumer. And they had to have certain guidelines in allowing, being able to compost those materials and let them break down and be safe. So, you never know who the consumer was, so making the compost that comes out of it really safe. What Allied Waste has been able to do just within the past 6 months, they have implemented a method of composting that allows for the post-consumer product to be safely composted. And that's opened up a great avenue to make your sustainability on your food service much easier. Prior to that, and how we handled it for 2008 University Day, was we worked with the Student Sustainability Center, which had a product or a system called an earth tub, and that allowed for the higher temperature of composting and breaking down that post-consumer product. And you may have noticed at your home waste recovery that they've now started allowing compost in with your yard debris. And they'll state, right now, they cannot take the post-consumer at that level, so they can take your garden or your kitchen scraps, but they don't necessarily want your leftover food waste right now because they don't have it worked out at that level. So the post-consumer goes through commercial level recycling and composting. And so in working with the Sustainability Office, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, that's why they can process the post-consumer through that way, but you can't necessarily mix your post-consumer compost in with your yard waste in your yard waste recycling bin that Allied Waste picks up from your home. So here's something that's really cool. what Allied Waste is doing here in Corvallis is the only place in Oregon that they're doing the post-consumer composting. Portland is jealous. Other communities are actually looking at ways to ship their post-consumer waste to Corvallis for processing. So pretty exciting that we're really that much on the cutting edge.
So wait, to clarify, post-consumer waste, you're meaning the food after it's been served on a plate, and then the whatever people don't eat?
Anything that
Left
could
on
have
the plate.
possibly come in contact with a person other than during the food prep. So it's one thing if you have your
So
vegetable.
raw food is fine, but cooked or
Right. If it's cooked food that people have come in contact with, if it's you've eaten on it, you've scraped a plate, that sort of thing, that's what's considered post-consumer. And that's why your kitchen scraps, the vegetable shavings and such like that, are basically a
right.
are safe to go into your waste. Yes.
Right.
So, starting with the big picture, these are the three main areas where we can make a difference in our event planning and make those be greener in our efforts. Especially this first one, is a little bit limited so much if we're doing on-campus events. But site selection can make a difference, and what you're able to work with on that is selecting a venue or a location that fits the size of your group. So don't necessarily pick the ballroom if you're only having a group for 20. And how that impacts in the sustainability world, the number of lights that you have on, the heating and cooling, that sort of thing. So finding the right size room. Work with your building manager or with the building manager of the site that you select to get the temperature control set properly so you don't have to prop doors open. That sort of thing can increase the utility bills for the particular location. Turn the lights off when you're done. A big one, and I didn't really think about this as we have projectors on all the time, but if you're not using a projector, turn it off. They suck a lot of energy, and that's an easy way. It's not something we think about regularly. Support locations that practice green techniques. I mean, a lot of places here across campus are very conscientious of that. We've made great efforts to keep our computers on hibernate, that sort of thing. So OSU campus, we're pretty well set. LaSalle Stewart Center, do they do some green practices, making sure to be more efficient, do you know? Didn't need to put you on the spot.
They've changed out all their lights here,
Okay.
so that they're more sustainable lights. We're just talking about this morning.
So, but when you go off campus, think about as you're making your site selection, if the place is doing some green efforts and making sure that your group fits the size of the room that you're looking at. One thing that has been suggested by the Sustainability Center and Campus Recycling is Brandon Trelstad suggested buying carbon offsets. That's not something I think necessarily a lot of us have the ability to do, although he did mention that some people on campus have purchased carbon offsets to balance out for their events. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. Talk with Brandon Trelstad if you have more questions about that. We have one of the resources that we have on campus is the solar trailer. How many people have seen the solar trailer running around on campus? Okay, so Pete Laprie is the one who you can contact to get the solar trailer. And what that is, it's a very interesting vehicle. They will tow it to your location and set it up, and it allows you to plug directly into the trailer. Once they get it in location, they lift up the big old solar panels and spread them out so it has a really great visual, and it gives you the benefit of getting power to some locations that you might not necessarily be able to in other situations. Recently, we used last spring, we used the solar trailer for an event, and it was a tent presentation that we had set up. It was going to be like $400 to have facilities come and run power from a light pole just to power the PA system that we needed. Well, we were able to bring in the solar trailer at no charge, plus have that great visual that we were powering the podium with the solar trailer. Now, you may think solar trailer, I have to worry about the sun, if it's a night event, that sort of thing. That's not necessarily the case. It's not a limiting factor. They charge up the solar trailer in its regular storage, and so if you're running a long event, you'll definitely need the sun to be able to keep it going. But I think it runs something like 4 hours with a moderate pull of power off that. So if you can work the solar trailer into one of your events, Pete Laprie is your contact for that. All right. And then transportation. If If you're here on campus, you're probably not going to have to worry about too much about transportation. Everybody's already here. But if you're going to an off-site location, it's something that you can think about. You can rent a bus to get all your attendees there. And then OSU has this very interesting rideshare program, which allows you to go on to this site, to this website, and register where your activity is taking place, and then you can point other people to this rideshare program, which would allow people to kind of coordinate efforts and carpool to your activity. And then here's an area where you as the event planner can really make a big difference, and that is all the materials that you provide all the way through the event. And one thing that Andrea and I have learned through doing University Day is communicating with your audience that you're doing a zero waste or a waste conscious event from the beginning, or in materials throughout, in signage, can make a really big difference on how successful the zero waste, the composting, recycling, that sort of thing are, and it makes a big difference on how successful it is, and then it also gets you kudos as a planner for your conscientious effort of being more sustainable. So, ways you can do that: you can announce it on your website, you can put it in the invitations. Using signage is huge. That comes into that kind of education portion, but educating people and educating them through signage can make a huge difference on how successful your efforts are. And if you're working with vendors, individually wrapped treats or maybe a gumball machine type dispenser, to eliminate that little bit of extra packaging but still make your food safe for your visitors and guests. So a little bit deeper into your communication, you can send your invitations electronically versus traditional paper invitations. This is something that Kate and I have done for a couple years now, and that was actually at the request of President and Mrs. Ray, that for folks on campus to send electronic. And you know what? People seem to really like it. You want to comment anything on that? The joys of electronic?
I like it a lot better because I can actually personalize the invitation when I do it electronically more cost effectively. You can actually send the invitation to the person with their name in it instead of just we invite you, we invite Vicki Nunamaker, so it just adds that little special personal touch. And I also find that replies come back a heck of a lot faster, and a lot more people actually take the time to reply electronically than they do with the paper invitation. And it's easier for me then to go back and track down who hasn't replied, because I have their email address and everything right there, and just go back and find out, hey, are you coming or not? What's your story? So it's just an easier way to communicate with your guests by far, and a lot less time consuming, and definitely a lot less financially. I mean, the cost of invitations, you're looking at 32 cents an invite, plus the envelope, plus the stamp, plus your time
to print it all
print
out.
them, stuff them, managing a printer that's not cooperating. Yeah.
So electronics is definitely a great way to go for that, and it's very widely accepted now. People are very comfortable with that form of invitation, even at some more formal levels, which is nice. Send out your agendas electronically and post handouts online. So the notes that I'm using for my talk today, they are on the University Events website. Go to Tools for Planners, and the first topic, it says go here for presentation notes for Training Days 2009. So you can see exactly what I'm using as my cue sheet. It's not fancy, it's not pretty, but it has a little bit more information than just giving you the PowerPoint, and if you only want to look at a few details, it saves you from having to print it out as well. Request recycled content paper when you do have to print things, and include a tag at the bottom that says that it's printed on recycled paper. One thing that I've learned recently is that there's a lot of different contents of recycled material in papers now, and a lot of them, the Enviro paper you'll see, will say it's 30% post-consumer. And you may look at that and say, hey, well, I know there's 100% post-consumer options out there. The difference that you're looking at between a 30% and a 100% post-consumer, remember post-consumer and pre-consumer here, is that it actually takes more chemicals to make a nice, pretty piece of paper if it's 100% post-consumer. So the gain that you're making, you're putting more chemicals into the environment to try to have that bright, clean, white piece of paper, even if it's 100% post-consumer. So what they found is that the 30% post-consumer regular copy paper is the current efficient standard to choose. Another thing is, if you're getting the higher post-consumer content, is don't ask for the bright white. When you get the flex and a little bit more grayish, still perfectly functional piece of paper, but that's another way you can kind of trade off in your post-consumer content when you're looking at paper choices. Let's see. So, use name badges that can be recycled. More and more I'm seeing at conferences, you get your name tag and there's a bin at the end where you toss it back in. That's something that Kate and I have been doing for quite some time. We have the plastic pen back holders where we'll print out the name tags. Kate or Caitlin will cut them all out and stuff them all in, and then at the end of the event we'll collect them back. Well, they're just white pieces of paper or recyclable paper that we use to make the inserts, and then the name badges are ready to be reused again. In the borrowables that we offer, that's something that we could work with your group on if you would like to do this. So we could send you out with some of the name tags holders that we've used in the past, and then you just need to pay for the ones that don't get returned back. So a way that we can work together to do that recycling method through the name tags. Let's see, so yeah, collecting your name tag holders after the end of the event. It is very helpful if you have someone there, especially, they've gone out of a dinner and you're catching most of the guests as they've left, to say, thank you for coming, we can recycle your name tag if you'd like, that sort of thing. Because most of the time by that point, people have totally forgotten that they're wearing a name tag. And I'm surprised at how many of them say, oh yeah, I have a ton of these at home. And what I'll frequently say, because Kate and I work with so many events that we're doing, that we have kind of a stockpile of this type of thing, we'll encourage them, hey, if you have a stack at home you just want to get rid of, send back to us. And we know what Conference Services uses as far as their name badges, so if we get ones that you use the hang tag, the plastic pouch ones, the hang tag that goes around the neck. If we get those back in, we send them on to you, so you're able to recycle them as well, or reuse them as well. So, if you're giving a physical item, you can include a web address on your piece so that they can go for more information. One of my favorite ways to save within decor is to partner with other people on campus. And that's in ways, find out if someone's having an event close to yours and see if you can go in together and share centerpieces. We work frequently with Vet Med to do that. It works out great. Buy the centerpiece once, get 2-3 uses out of it. So it's a great way, and it's just talking with other event planners through either, there's the new IMC learning groups through the NING network is a great way to talk about what events you have going on and find people that you can connect with. Or, contact us, look at the OSU calendar and see if there's an event that kind of matches up, and contact the planner for that and say, hey, is there a way we can partner and share some resources here? Then everybody saves money. And then one recent one that I've read about, because I did some research to see if there were any holes that we were missing as far as our presentation with this, and that was in regard to gifts. There has been a trend lately to give experiential gifts versus as many physical items. So if there are tours or lectures or special one-on-one type things, those can be a great opportunity to still give a gift, but it's not an object. It's not just more stuff. And the return on that also is you're getting an opportunity to share a little bit more about you or your group in that gift-giving opportunity. So, the first and foremost important thing to do is to tell the caterer that you want to do a sustainable event. Get them in on it from the very beginning. But no matter who you choose as your caterer, if you're doing an event here on campus, involve our sustainability group. So currently that is housed within campus recycling. The contact for that is Andrea Norris, and I'll give you her name and such at the end of this presentation, or her phone number and such at the end of this presentation. But get them involved as well. Let them know if you're trying to do compostable and such like that, because they have some resources too. But let's start off with catering for right now. So you've told your caterer that you want to do a sustainable event, and that can apply in a couple different ways. It can involve what you choose of what you order and how you order, and then the staffing of the other 2 points we'll get onto in a bit. Specially requests, one of the big things that you can do is specifically state that you would prefer not to use personal condiment packets. So the little mustards, ketchups, sugars, creamers, that sort of thing. Catering knows how to deal with this. They have pump stations and pourers and such like that. Quite often, those what they call PCs, they choose because they're convenient. They allow people to just grab the portions and walk away, while each one of those is a little plastic piece of trash. So this is a way, right off the bat, you can ask for the difference. That sort of thing makes no difference in what you're ending up paying for your event. It's just a simple way that you can reduce trash. So how you order? You've told catering that you would like to do a sustainable event, and that can be the food that you serve. You can ask for local items. You've heard local for fork to farm to fork, those sorts of things. OSU Catering has been working on this for a while, and we've worked with them also. We've had a few meals where we've done everything locally within Oregon, within 150 miles of production that we've served actually at meals here, and all the items down that go on the plate. Now, it may be different than what you'll see in the OSU Catering catalog, and I do have a stack of those back there. And the way you address that is say that you want to work with local vendors, with local food products as much as possible. So what they will do then is work to identify what's in season and what their local vendors can get. So you might not be able to get strawberries in January. There's going to be a few little trade-offs for that, but they can help you through that process. It's not like you have to figure out a menu that's local and in season. They will help you through that and help you make some of those choices. Consider reception items being served. Okay, so consider reception items being served on a napkin instead of on a plate. This is an interesting one that we've tried a few times, and it works really well, and it has double benefits. First, if you have your beautiful buffet, have a stack of napkins, people put their orders on their napkin instead of taking a plate and heaping it full. First, you're controlling your portions. People won't eat quite as much. It'll be more social and such like that. And right off the bat, you've eliminated a plate, you've eliminated a fork, and those sorts of things. What items you choose, of course, definitely impact, but that one choice of doing it serving your reception food off of a napkin can make a huge difference in your cost savings and in your waste production. This is an interesting one. How many have ordered sack lunches for a meeting or something like that that's taken place? Okay, so did you know you have the option to order a sackless lunch? It's the exact same stuff. I mean, our sandwich, our fruit, the pasta salad and whatnot, but it saves it being packaged in a bag with a label, and what they'll do is they'll set it up for you like a buffet. So you're paying the same price for a sack lunch, but you're getting what will be perceived as a nicer type of presentation. And then you can also have the possibility, depending on how your meeting's structured, of doing your potato salad in a bowl with a spoon. That saves all those little portion cups with all those little lids. I mean, all these little bits of pieces that eventually become trash because they're one-use items. It's a very easy way for you to make a choice, make a request. It costs you nothing more, and you have a nice presentation out of the deal. Let's see, and that's again another opportunity to request pumps or pours or such like that instead of the personal condiment packages. So this is using china instead of disposable. We've heard about this one for a while. It's pretty much a no-brainer. We know it costs more. So that's a choice that you can make. And let me tell you some of the different, and then so we have our traditional plastic plate, we have the china glassware, and then we have the compostables. Ecnowtech is a company here in Corvallis that produces compostable products. A lot of the places are using them now, or at least have them as an option. There's even a place downtown that you can go and purchase them. So if you're doing an activity yourself that you're not involving a caterer, you can get your own compostable supplies, work with campus recycling to be able to collect the items. So you can produce your own, in your own way, holiday potluck type thing, your own compostable zero waste event. Okay, so here's some of the costs so you can compare what those different options are. So to go with China, it's $1.75 a person to upgrade for reception, $2.75 for a lunch buffet, or $3 for dinner. And that's the trade-out between having your disposable service and having China that will come washed and cleaned, and they'll haul it away and clean it and get it all prepped up. So if you want to do compostable materials, and these prices are through OSU Catering. If you want to use compostable, try to do a zero waste event or compost as much as possible. The upgrade on that is only 50 cents a person. So it's really, and they're balancing that out. It actually costs a little bit more for them to choose the compostable alternative right now. But they are so much believe that this is a good way to go that they've tried to make it very cost effective for everyone. So 50 cents a person to go with compostables instead of your regular disposables.
What was the name of the company again?
Ecnowtech. They've been, let's see, they're recent. I would say within the past year, becoming very, very active. But the place that used to be Your Green Home downtown is the place that stocks their supplies, or one of the places that stocks their supplies. And then, of course, working with Ecnowtech, you could probably get additional items if there's something that pertains to your conference work that they don't have the storefront. Let's see. Another big way to make a huge difference without costing you a penny is to ask for your water to be served in pitchers or in jugs instead of in individual water bottles. And people usually, I mean, I've never had anybody complain by making that choice, but geez, just think of all the water bottles that aren't being emptied, single portion type things. And then you can also, if you're serving water and coffee at a meeting or something like that, you can, as part of your advertising and spreading the word of what you're doing, you can ask your attendees to bring their own water bottle or coffee mug. An easy way to to express very sustainable actions without costing you anything more. One thing you'll want to do, though, is if you're having people bring their own containers, to let your caterer know that you've suggested this, as many coffee cups, coffee mugs are taller than your traditional coffee cup. I see sitting right over there. And what catering will do is they'll put their coffee service up on a riser. So your guests are able to do that. It seems like a simple thing, but it can make a big difference on whether or not your efforts are successful or not. You know, like any other event thing, there's a lot of details. We just have to think through them ahead of time. All right. One other thing that has been a topic for sustainability is consider reducing the amount of meat that you serve or offer at a particular event. Choose items lower on the food chain, more vegetables, that sort of thing. Okay. So, if you're using compostables, right now it takes a little, people aren't quite familiar with the process. We need to help our guests understand how this process works. This is a nice little presentation that catering has put together, and I like it because if these are the items that you're actually serving the food on, they can say, oh, okay, I know that my flatware looks like this, even though that I know this is flatware. Okay, I see that this is actually a compostable piece. So signage like this can be very helpful in helping to identify what can be done. And with campus recycling, they can provide volunteers, or they can help educate your own staff on how to assist people with their composting, throwing away process. They can provide the barrels and bins and such like that. They can provide vests that help identify the volunteers or staffers for composting and recycling to make them more identifiable. They'll also haul the stuff away. Catering will haul it away as well. But that's the advantage of involving the campus recycling in that process. And let's see, the less you ask your guests to sort, the more likely they will be able to dispose of things correctly. We're still working on that to make it really a seamless process because there's so many there's so much change going on right now. 6 months ago, you couldn't do the compost. Now you can. So we're working to that process. Expect some bumps as we go through that, but we'll get there. And then just a few little details that I will share. Recently, some people have asked, as they're making efforts to be more sustainable, and this is predominantly at student groups, so we can talk about them because they're not here. Some people have asked caterers if they can borrow their dishes. While it's a very nice thought, there are several different elements that prevent just straight out borrowing from really being a good option. So, what we have as an alternative is we have special occasions that do rent dishes and glasses and that sort of thing. I mean, we've all worked in special occasions, I'm sure, but they're the good resource to go for that. Catering or food service areas are not a good place to ask to go borrow glassware and china and that sort. If you want to bring your own dishes for an event, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept, it is possible. So say, you have your church dishes or something like that you want to use, but you're working with a caterer and you're trying to figure out that middle ground of how they can do that. At least OSU Catering offers a $75 processing fee to use someone else's dishes, but then they'll clean them and have them returned. So that gives you a third option. Let's see. One detail I'd like to share is I have two. Okay, I have two last details to share before we go on to your ideas. So I hope you've come up with some ideas to share with the group. What happens with all the food left over after an event is catered? And you may see the food back in the warmers, like, oh my goodness, look at all that stuff. They made so much. Well, catering has to make a certain amount to make sure that all your guests are taken care of. So how do they meet that balance? All that food that does not go out on the buffet tables gets donated to Lynn Benton Food Share. So it's actually going out to needy organizations within our community. It's not wasted. It's not thrown away. OSU Catering has been very, very dedicated to helping close that loop and make sure that stuff does not go to waste. I was hoping to get the exact number because of pounds that they donated to the food share over the past year, but I wasn't able to get that information in time. But it's pretty hefty. So at least here on campus, they're making great efforts to really take care of that and not be just throwing it away. Let's see. But another item to that, food safety prohibits hot items being taken as leftovers from events. And the reason that is because they have no idea what's going to happen to it after you box up and walk away with it. Are you going to leave it in the back of your car for 4 hours, that sort of thing. And it is really just a food safety issue. That's why they won't allow you to take those hot food items afterwards. And then one last little plug for our friends at OSU Catering. All their vehicles run on biodiesel, and they have one electrical vehicle as well that they've been using for deliveries. They compost all their kitchen waste, and then you can visit Marketplace West as they are using that as a pilot location for daily post-consumer composting. This is their trial, and if it works, they will start using it further across campus.